Previously, I made several VeggieTales related videos. I did an Unnecessary Censorship one.
I'm Bob the Tomato.
And I'm Larry the Cucumber, and we're here to your
That's right.
And then LarryBoy's game.
One enemy type is beaten with spinning, another is immune to that, so they have to get sucked off.
And then LarryBoy's game, but the other version.
Guys?
LarryBoy is able to suck his own dick.
You can check those out at your leisure. Working on those, I also discovered that there was no subreddit for LarryBoy. Previously. He's ours now, bitches. I am requesting you make outrageous memes starring LarryBoy for me, please. And thank you. I don't know. Maybe this VeggieTales kick is me trying to rekindle some sort of long-lost whimsy as I approach the ill-defined void that is my 30s. Or maybe my 4-year-old self is just off camera, forcing me to do this at gunpoint. Any Christians watching will probably proclaim this to be God trying to reel me back in. Tell you what, you guys should subscribe and keep track. Maybe make a comment on each video I make if you think I'm getting more God-fearing each time. Now, for that first video, the one where I the vegetables for my own enjoyment, I wanted to make sure I got a good amount of variety. I used some of the classics from my childhood, I used newer episodes I had never seen, and I even used some of the weird 2D LarryBoy episodes. Weird is probably an understatement on those. As I was watching these, though, one episode really stood out to me, and not in a good way. See, most of the time, while I don't believe in the religious messages presented, I have mad respect for the talent. Typically, the voice acting, writing, music and singing, visual design, etc., etc., are all sufficient to at least be entertaining. One episode, though, was just bad. Plain and simply bad. Generic. Hot air. Dare I say it, it felt soulless. Episode 51, Noah's Ark, was the last episode of the original VeggieTales series that ran between 1993 and 2015. Side note, I'll be pulling a lot of random bits of info straight from the Big Idea wiki directly. I don't think any of the information within is inaccurate, but considering the history of documenting the so-called inerrant Word of God is marked with numerous verifiable inaccuracies, discrepancies, alterations, and additions, I'd wager a fandom-based internet wiki has plenty of opportunity for fallibility. This episode is also the only normal episode of VeggieTales to share the animation style of the Netflix adaptation. That's right, there was a Netflix series. It is not available on Netflix anymore and I have not watched it. I'm sure it was fine. Netflix never puts out bad adaptations. Right off the bat, even if the rest of the episode were better, the art style is doing it no favors. It technically increases detail in some ways, most noticeably with characters having colored irises now, but everything looks much more like it's trying to be every other generic DreamWorks-looking CGI kids show. It's not even consistent, though. Paul Grape has the old style of black dot eyes like tiny characters had before, except he himself didn't even have eyes back then. It's not worth getting stuck on, it's just odd. Also, and I didn't know where else to put it, so I'm putting it here since maybe it happened back in the Netflix show, but I don't know. Madame Blueberry is no longer French.
It could be God tries to speak with you. Maybe you just haven't been listening.
They gentrified Madame Blueberry. Back to the big picture, I keep using generic because that is the overwhelming feeling this episode gave me. It was painful to get through because mediocre and boring is much worse for entertainment than something bad in weird or unexpected ways. The whole episode is the better part of an hour, which is broadly in line with VeggieTales stuff, but that time really drags since it can't bring anything new to the table. They occasionally make animal jokes, since that's the lowest bar to meet for Noah's Ark, but they never felt original. The pigs are named after pork products? Wild. They use turtles instead of pucks for games? Groundbreaking! They put the laundry up to dry on the moose antlers? Remarkable. Get this, guys. A monkey eats something it shouldn't eat. The wiki says this is clearly a shout out to Curious George doing the same thing, because that's the only other time this joke has been made for a monkey. One joke shows bird droppings. Haha, body fluids. Non-animal stereotype jokes don't fare much better. They're having to fix leaks with caulk guns. Someone quotes Terminator. You know, like it's a real gun.
Hasta la vista, Weedy.
Side note, I don't even know if you can put construction tar in a caulk gun, so if someone who actually has skills that contribute to society could let me know in the comments, I'd appreciate it. You know the one cliché piece of music used for love at first sight? The one that presumably no one would want to use unironically anytime in at least the last 15 years? They used it unironically for pig shipping. Normally, VeggieTales gets by with several other elements working in tandem to keep things light and fun, but everything here is just paint by the numbers. Sometimes they would do shockingly accurate spoofs of other properties. See Lord of the Beans. Noah's Ark, though, is just a straight adaptation, except for the fact that it appears to be set in the modern day. So the writers were thinking about drowning us, the sinners who exist right now. Neat. Silly Songs with Larry famously break up the episodes so that young kids who have shorter attention spans don't get bored. Usually this means some pretty big, zany setup. He does a dramatic soap opera number about a lost hairbrush. He does a dramatic soap opera number about a manatee. He does a dramatic soap opera number about a veterinarian that yodels. There are even ones that aren't dramatic soap opera numbers too. In this one, Larry just gets a little too enthusiastic for an Easter egg hunt. Not like over the top, barring some casual animal cruelty. He's just a little too invested for it to be healthy. He doesn't find the egg he wants, but then a kid shares with him. What a silly song that truly was, y'all. This whole thing feels like the crew was just completely out of steam, filling the episode with whatever they could to meet the expected runtime. There's a subplot about the boat starting to leak, and about Noah's son not trusting God enough because he keeps building inventions to try and improve the situation, and another sees a kraken attack. Frankly, it has so much endangerment, it calls into question God's ability to protect them, and it introduces so many changes it should probably be blasphemous to fundamentalist believers, since it literally says, the holy word of God is too boring if we don't add exciting shit. What likely doesn't help is the story itself. Noah's Ark is the basic bitch of Bible stories. It's one of the first ones they tell kids in Sunday schools, probably because all of the animals make it very toyetic for play sets, felt boards, and picture books. It is also one of the stories that, ironically, does not hold any water if you're not already on board with it. Literal belief in the global flood is easily disproven by historians, as global cultures have continuity through all purported timeframes and did not all suddenly end at once. Geologists, as flooding on that scale would have impacted what types of materials we would see in the various layers of the Earth. Zoologists, as you could most definitely not fit all the types of animals times 2 plus the supplies to keep them alive plus the extra animals for sacrifice on any boat, especially one as small as listed. Geneticists, as modern humans would all have descended from an impossibly small sample size following the survival of this one family, and we would see it in our genes. Physicists, as the story implies God straight up changes how light works following to invent rainbows, yet light fundamentally would have always been able to split into a rainbow through a prism, lest it wouldn't work as light, and probably tons of other scientific fields. This is pretty much the Bible story that most blatantly necessitates outright denial of the evidence around us, as young Earth creationists very commonly use the catastrophic conditions of Noah's flood to pseudo-scientifically wave away the real evidence they don't like. Young Earthers will claim the flood prematurely sped up various processes to make the 6,000-year-old Earth merely appear to be a 4.5 billion-year-old planet. However, physical and chemical reactions release heat, and cramming 4.5 billion years worth of reactions into any time span between 40 days and like a year-ish, depending on when you want these processes to happen during the flood story, and you'd have so much heat release, it would absolutely annihilate the Earth as a livable environment. And that still doesn't answer the question of how a planetary flood would make the rest of the universe's physics point to being 13.8 billion years old. Pretending Noah's flood makes any sense at all requires so much to be explained away by God magic that it literally makes this epistemology genuinely useless to reach any sort of non-circular conclusion about reality. It's like claiming leprechauns assassinated JFK, but there's no evidence because they used their leprechaun powers to cover their tracks. Cool. That helps no one. It's also inconsistent with the ideas of an omnipotent and omnibenevolent... It's also inconsistent with the ideas of an omnipotent and omnibenevolent God, as he chose to genocide most of Earth's population because he simply had no power to do anything else. Like, if humans were simply that sinful at that point in time, maybe that would be a more logical time to send in Jesus to get the whole salvation thing started. Because if you believe Jesus couldn't have saved people then, your God's cosmically biggest, most final plan is unfathomably weaker than the shenanigans humans can pull off. And even just removing the power limitations, you can't call the God of this story loving. Murder ain't loving. Also, there's a massive overlap between believers of Noah's flood and the pro-life crowd who believe embryonic cells deserve full human rights at conception and would call any degree of unborn fetus innocent. If the world were that sinful, and Christians define most sex as sinful, mind you, there would have been a lot of pregnant folk who drowned in this global flood. From their perspective, God holds the highest record of abortions performed out of anyone from this event alone. I myself find the greater tragedy in this setup to be the genocide of autonomous, already birthed human beings in possession of a capacity to experience suffering, but so many fundamentalists love the idea of people they don't like suffering at the hands of cosmic wrath, so I'm meeting them halfway. The biblical flood would have been one big fetus soup. In short, Noah's Ark tells the story of a morally bankrupt God, and the VeggieTales adaptation of said story is an utter disappointment in nearly every way possible. Nearly.
You kids go forth and multiply.
I have no idea what that means.
I'll explain it to you later.
I warned you guys that VeggieTales fuck.